All right, let's dive into something pretty interesting. Bitcoin and Islam. You might not think those two go together, but trust me, this is a fascinating deep dive.
It's not your typical Bitcoin conversation, for sure.
Definitely not. We're looking at this YouTube video by scholar Adnaan Menk. It's called Bitcoin Simplified, an Islamic Perspective. And he really goes deep into Islamic rulings on Bitcoin, but he stays away from giving financial or legal advice.
Yeah, I think it's a unique perspective because you always hear about, how much is Bitcoin worth or like the
Yeah.
technical stuff.
Right, right.
But Menk, he's bringing in Islamic principles.
Exactly. It gets you thinking about the morals, the bigger picture impact of Bitcoin.
Exactly.
And he starts off talking about this thing called the Byzantine generals problem.
Yeah.
It's an old military situation, but it actually helps us understand what Bitcoin's trying to solve.
Okay, so picture this. You've got all these generals surrounding a city, right? Each one's got their own army. They need to attack all at the same time for it to work. But they can't really trust the messages getting through, and there's no guarantee everyone will actually attack together.
So it's like a trust issue and a coordination nightmare.
Yeah, a classic problem. You need a system where everyone's on the same page.
Right, even without one boss calling all the shots.
Exactly. And this old problem, it's like a mirror of what happens with money today. That's where Bitcoin jumps in.
So Bitcoin, it claims to fix this through blockchain technology, right? It's like instead of having one central power that could mess things up, it spreads the records of every transaction across tons of different people.
Right.
But Menk doesn't just stop at explaining how blockchain works.
Mm-hmm.
He goes straight into how Islamic scholars see this whole decentralized thing.
That's what makes this deep dive so interesting. It goes beyond the tech stuff and gets into right and wrong religious beliefs.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it turns out there's no one answer in Islam about cryptocurrency. There are actually different opinions on it.
There are.
Menk breaks it down into four main views. Some scholars say it's too complex. They don't even want to give an opinion.
Yeah, I can see that. It's a lot to unpack.
Right. Then you've got some who say it's completely haram, forbidden.
Right.
Then there's the other side who say it's halal, it's allowed.
Makes sense. Two sides of the coin.
And then there's this fourth view that seems kind of confusing. They say it's halal, but only if it's controlled by a central authority.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's wait, isn't the whole point of Bitcoin that there's no central control?
Right. It seems kind of contradictory.
Right. So maybe you really want to understand the reasons behind each of these views.
It's a good place to start, yeah. Let's dive into those arguments. So, those scholars who say crypto is haram,
Yeah.
they have some key concerns. One big one is decentralization, the fact that there's no one in charge. In Islam, traditionally, there's a big emphasis on a governing power, like someone who issues and regulates the money. Bitcoin kind of disrupts that whole model.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about how it fits or doesn't fit with existing religious and legal systems.
Exactly. And there are more concerns, too. Another one is that Bitcoin doesn't have a physical form. It's not something you can hold in your hand.
Right.
Traditionally, Islamic law has seen money as something tangible, something real, like gold or silver. Bitcoin, it's all digital. So they question if it even counts as money.
That's interesting because even regular money today, most of it is just digital records. We don't use cash that much anymore.
That's true.
But I can see how not having that physical thing to back it up might make people worry about whether Bitcoin is stable or not.
Yeah, it's a good point. We need to look deeper into how these old principles apply to these new technologies.
Definitely. Okay, so what are some other concerns?
The third one is about how much Bitcoin's price jumps up and down. It's volatile. And that's seen as a kind of gambling, which Islam strictly forbids. It's hard to plan financially when things are so unpredictable.
It's definitely something a lot of people worry about. Even those who aren't focused on Islamic views, those price swings can be scary for investors.
For sure. Okay, so moving on to the last two arguments. The fourth concern is that crypto is linked to illegal stuff.
Oh.
Because it's anonymous and decentralized, it's easy to use for money laundering or the drug trade, things like that.
That's true.
So that raises ethical questions.
It does. But doesn't cash get used for illegal things more than Bitcoin?
That's a valid point.
It seems like we should be looking at the whole picture, not just focusing on Bitcoin.
Definitely. You're right. It's not just about the technology, it's about how people use it. And the last argument.
Yeah.
It's about the mystery surrounding Bitcoin's creator, Satoshi Nakamoto. We don't even know who this person or group is. And in Islam, Being transparent and ethical in financial dealings is really important. So this anonymity, it can be a problem.
It's like that feeling of unease when you don't know who's really pulling the strings.
Right.
But some people might say, hey, it doesn't matter who made it. The code works, right?
That's true. They focus on how Bitcoin functions. Anyone can look at the code and check that it works. It's open source.
So it's like, judge the food, not the chef.
Exactly. It makes you think about how we define trust and authority in this digital age.
It really does. Okay, so we've heard the arguments against crypto from an Islamic viewpoint.
Yeah.
Now I want to hear the other side. What do the scholars who say crypto is halal have to say?
That's where things get even more interesting.
So we've heard the haram side, the concerns about crypto from an Islamic perspective. But now let's flip the script. What about the scholars who see crypto as halal, as permissible? How do they answer those concerns about decentralization and not having a physical form and all that price volatility?
It's a really interesting debate. They're really grappling with this new tech, trying to see how it fits. So first, let's tackle decentralization. Some see it as a problem, right? But others, they see it as a good thing, a protection against, corruption. Like if no one person is in charge, maybe there's less chance for someone to abuse the system.
So they're saying that not having a central authority is actually a strength, not a weakness.
Yeah, it's kind of a bold take. They argue that it can make the financial system fairer, more transparent, less chance for manipulation.
I can see that. If the system is designed to prevent any one person from having too much power, it could be less corrupt. Okay, what about the argument that Bitcoin doesn't have a physical form? Some scholars see that as a problem from an Islamic perspective. How do the halal proponents respond to that?
Well, they point out that most of our money today is already digital. We hardly ever use physical cash anymore. It's all electronic transactions. So saying that digital currency isn't valid just because you can't hold it, it seems kind of, I don't know, outdated.
Yeah, it's like we're already living in a digital financial world, so why should it matter so much if the currency itself is digital or not?
How long it's secure.
Right.
Exactly.
What about the price volatility? That's a big one, especially for Islamic views, because of the rules against gambling.
Right. People look at how much Bitcoin goes up and down, and they say it's like gambling. But the proponents, they say, hey, all markets have ups and downs, not just crypto.
So they're saying volatility is normal. It's not just a Bitcoin thing.
Yeah. Like, think about stocks or even real estate. Sometimes they go up, sometimes they go down. It's just how markets work. They're saying Bitcoin is just a young market. That's why it's so volatile.
Okay, I get that. I guess the key is whether you're speculating, trying to make a quick buck, or if you're investing for the long term.
Yeah, good distinction.
Okay, so what about the concerns about illegal activities and the fact that we don't know who created Bitcoin? How do those get addressed?
Well, on the illegal activity front, they argue that cash is actually used more for illegal stuff than Bitcoin is.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they say focusing on Bitcoin is missing the bigger picture. Criminals have always found ways to use the financial system no matter what it is.
So it's not the tool itself, it's how people use it.
Exactly. Like, you can't blame the internet for cybercrime.
Right. True. Okay, what about the mystery creator, Satoshi Nakamoto?
This is interesting. Some proponents say, look, what matters is that the code works, not who wrote it. Bitcoin is open source. Anyone can check the code to make sure it does what it's supposed to do.
So it's like the proof is in the pudding. You judge the system by its results, not by who built it.
Exactly. It challenges our ideas about trust. Do we need to know who's behind something to trust it?
It's a good question for the digital age. Okay, this is all really fascinating, but it brings up another point of debate, Bitcoin mining.
Right. Mining is how new Bitcoins are created and how transactions are verified. But it uses a lot of computing power, a lot of energy.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
So there are concerns about the environmental impact.
If Bitcoin is contributing to climate change, that's a big problem.
It is, and that's why people are interested in this other approach, proof of stake. It's supposed to use less energy.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
So instead of miners using all that computing power, proof of stake, it's more about holding on to your crypto.
Right. It's like earning rewards just for holding your crypto. And those holders, they become the validators. They make sure transactions are legit.
So it's like earning interest on your crypto, but it's also helping to secure the network.
Yeah, that's the idea. It's more energy efficient.
Yeah.
Potentially more secure, too.
But does this proof of stake thing, does it raise any concerns from an Islamic perspective?
It does, actually, because, getting rewards for holding crypto, it might be seen as similar to riba, that's interest, which is forbidden in Islam. It's a tricky area. Scholars are still debating it.
This whole conversation is so multi-layered. It's technical, it's economic, and it's got these deep ethical and religious dimensions.
It really does. And remember, this is just about Bitcoin. Menk also talks about how blockchain could change all kinds of things, not just finance, like healthcare, supply chains, even voting.
Wow, I'd love to hear more about that. It's amazing to think that something that started with Bitcoin could end up changing the world in so many ways. It really is mind-blowing. So how could blockchain actually change those things? Healthcare, supply chains, even voting? And would those changes fit with Islamic ethics?
Okay, so let's picture healthcare. Imagine all your medical records are stored safely on a blockchain, right? No one can access them without your permission.
Wow, that would be amazing. No more carrying around those giant files or waiting forever to get your records sent from one doctor to another.
Exactly. It could make things so much easier for patients and could cut down on errors and fraud.
This sounds great, but what about privacy? Islam puts a lot of importance on protecting personal information. Would that be a problem?
That's a good point. But blockchain, it's encrypted and decentralized, remember? That means it could actually offer really strong security, which fits with Islamic principles.
So it could work, but it has to be designed the right way from the beginning.
Yeah.
People need to be in control of their own information.
Right, you can't just throw technology at a problem and expect it to solve everything. You have to think about ethics and values.
Definitely. Okay, so what about supply chains? How could blockchain change that?
Imagine this. You buy a product, and you can trace its whole journey, from where it was made to how it got to you. You can even verify that it's authentic and ethically sourced.
So no more wondering if something's really fair trade or organic or whatever.
Exactly. Blockchain could bring so much transparency and accountability. It fits with Islamic ideas of fairness and honesty in business.
Wow, that would be amazing. It could really empower consumers to make ethical choices.
Mhm.
Are there any specific Islamic principles that apply here?
For sure. Islam emphasizes honesty and transparency in all transactions. So being able to track the origin of goods, it could help make sure they meet halal standards.
It's really cool how ancient principles can be applied to these cutting-edge technologies. It's like a bridge between the past and the future. Okay, so what other sectors could blockchain impact?
Menk even talks about voting. Imagine if every vote was recorded on a blockchain. Secure and impossible to tamper with, it could revolutionize elections.
That would be incredible, especially in places where people don't trust the voting system. But wouldn't that raise issues about anonymity? Like someone forcing you to vote a certain way or even buying votes? That would be a problem in Islam too, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Any voting system built on blockchain would have to deal with those challenges. They'd probably have to use really advanced cryptography to keep votes anonymous and prevent fraud. It's a tough problem, but it shows how blockchain could make democracy stronger.
This whole deep dive has been eye-opening. We've gone from Bitcoin to blockchain, changing the world. It's been amazing. So, any final thoughts for our listeners? They're probably thinking, okay, this is all really interesting, but what does it mean for me?
I think the most important takeaway is this. Blockchain is new. We're still figuring it out. It's going to keep evolving.
So don't get too caught up in the hype.
Right. Be curious, but be critical too. Don't just accept every new technology without thinking it through.
So be informed, but be discerning too. What else?
We need to keep having these conversations about the ethics of blockchain, especially from an Islamic viewpoint. How does it fit with our values? How can we make sure it's used for good?
It's not just about the tech itself, it's about how we use it and the values we build into it. Anything else before we wrap up?
Menk reminds us that, when the internet first started, no one really knew how much it would change things. It's the same with blockchain. The first uses might not be the most important ones. We need to stay open to the possibilities, but always remember our ethics, our principles.
It's a call for both excitement and responsibility, right? We get to shape this technology to make sure it makes the world a better place. This has been an incredible journey. Thanks for joining us as we explored Bitcoin, Islamic perspectives, and the power of blockchain. It's a conversation that's just getting started. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and let's build the future together.